Hello, and welcome to another Angry unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the PTUR Faktoriya ATGM. The 9K111 Fagot, otherwise known by its NATO name, the AT4 Spigot, was a Soviet ATGM which entered into service in the early 70s. It's actually very similar to the Concourse ATGM. They use the same launcher, it's just a different missile, the Fagot missile being a smaller, less powerful warhead. The Fagot was primarily used by infantry. It could be mounted on vehicles, not that often. Mainly the Concourse would be the missile which would be mounted on a lot of vehicles. Of course the Concourse could also be used by infantry, but the Fagot was primarily attached to motor rifle battalions, usually 2 to 3 at the battalion level for long-range anti-tank work when an RPG-7 won't cut it. The Fagot was used by a whole heap of Soviet as well as ex-Soviet countries, and also a popular export weapon. The weapon we're talking about today is the 9M111M Faktoriya, also known as the Trading Post, that's its translation, which is basically a more modernized version of the Fagot ATGM with a better motor and guidance riot systems, and a slightly better warhead as well. In-game, the PTUR Faktoriya is a 10-point ATGM available to the Soviet Union, and it has 2 weapons. So you have the utterly useless small arms of AK-74s, which are really only good for shooting down lightly armoured reconnaissance helicopters, which dare fly directly over you. And then you have the Faktoriya ATGM, with 6 missiles, 2.4 kilometer range, 45% accuracy, 16 AP, and a reload time of 5 seconds. Got down to miscellaneous stats, they have no armor whatsoever, as they are just squishy humans, with 2-man teams, very small size, medium optics, a speed of 15 kilometers an hour, regular training with very good stealth, year restricted to 1975, which isn't much of a restriction, and has no type restrictions either. Now, in battle, the PTUR Faktoriya is a rather underwhelming looking ATGM infantry piece. And I don't blame you for thinking that this thing is crap, because, well, with a lot of decks, especially general decks, you're only going to take probably 1 card worth of ATGM infantry to all you can really afford in the availability game. So you're going to take the biggest and baddest ATGMs, usually, for example, Soviet Union, the Concourse M. But there's honestly a very good argument for taking cheaper ATGMs over the more high expensive ones. And it's really due to the role of ATGM infantry in wargame, because they aren't really, for the most part, the killers of super heavy and heavy style tanks. That's more for ATGM planes and helicopters, as well as other heavy and super heavy tanks. ATGM infantry is more for zoning out areas, so you plop them inside of a building complex, and any dastardly vehicle which there gets within 2.4 kilometers, 2.6 kilometers, depending on the ATGM, of that building complex, is going to have a bad time. The thing is that a lot of wargame players now are actually pretty good, especially when it comes to avoiding ATGMs. So if you fire this thing at max range and your opponent is smart, they have quite a bit of time to react by either reversing out of range or using smoke to just block your line of sight, and the ATGM just goes off into the air, doing absolutely no damage whatsoever. So in that scenario, when you're just using the ATGM as a zoning tool, it doesn't matter whether it's a Concourse M or Faktoriya. Your opponent isn't really going to know the difference unless they can deduce that, oh, my super heavy tank is only taking 1 point of damage instead of like 3 points of damage compared to the Concourse M. They're not really going to notice that most of the time. They're just going to yeet themselves out of the ray of the missile and try not to get close to the area where the missiles are coming from unless they start dropping down artillery on that area. And that's what makes the Faktoriya so useful, is that it's a great deterrence tool. Yes, it won't be killing super heavy tanks, but your opponent is smart enough to keep those super heavy tanks alive. But it will be knocking out lightly armoured vehicles and transports which do try to rush the town, so it still has a useful, practical role in that regard. If you run out of ammunition with it, who cares? It's a 10.8 EGM. You can buy more, and you have double the availability of Faktoriyas compared to Concours M's. You also have a lot of transport options available for the Faktoriya. Two notable runs is really the robot, as you can get extra ATGMs for the same price, or you can get the Screzit, which is a good cheap base defense vehicle or close infantry sport vehicle if need be. But overall there is a very good reason for using cheaper, crappier based ATGMs, especially in the higher level games of Wargame. Because even though this isn't a deadly missile to an M1 A2 Abrams, a missile is still a missile, and a heat missile will always do 1 point of damage. And people usually don't like getting hit by missiles, so you might as well just have a whole load of them. And well, I'm going to leave it off at that. This has been another Rangaroo's Unit of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.